Morning, Joe. Morning, Jamie. How you guys doing?
Good. How you doing, man?
Doing well. It's been, I guess, a couple episodes we had you guys on.
A little bit.
How's things going for you guys?
Good. Absolutely.
Speaking about you personally, not the Bills, right?
Oh, right into it.
Had to go to it.
Right
I had
into
to go
it.
to it.
Right into it.
I had to.
It's okay. We're still above the Pats, so.
It's true. The AFC East freaking rankings, I think everyone has a winning record, right?
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's, I think all 4 teams currently in the playoffs if they were to start tomorrow. So.
Even the freaking Dolphins.
Yeah. Nuts.
You know, whether we're usually 1 and 2, the Dolphins usually stay. So.
I know. A lot of football to play.
Very much so. So yeah, looking at logistics, obviously coming into the end of the year, people maybe having some time to plan their supply chains and logistics for next year. Having a lot of conversations, it seems, over the last couple of weeks about supply and demand for next year, especially around rail cars. We've been closely following what's been happening with these union rail negotiations and the threats, or maybe lack thereof threats, of potential strikes going into effect. I know we saw a deadline come and go, I guess a couple months ago now, where the government got involved and essentially didn't allow the strikes to go into place and sort of put a Band-Aid on it and extended some of the deadlines. So what's the most recent updates with the union negotiations and how the rail's been?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we're basically, in a little cooling off period again, until I think it's early December. And I mean, this is to the point of we've seen this come by before. I mean, it's something that, I mean, they've been negotiating this since 2020 as a whole. Yeah. So this is something that we've seen a few times, and it's just, there's a lot of money, a lot of, earnings, a lot of shipments, all kinds of things on the line for the workers, for the companies involved, the country as a whole, the world as a whole. So it's just something that it's, we've been in a lot of stalemates, but I don't really see anything going too far south in the foreseeable future, just because, again, there's so much on the line for everyone. It's kind of a lose-lose if they do end up in a strike.
Right. It seems that the government's kind of showed their hand that they're going to get involved and do what they need to do to avoid that and keep the rail lines moving.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, right now the proposals on the table are, record increases in wages, whether or not, that is as high as some would like, or higher than others would like. It is what's on the table. So,
But it can be argued that it's deserved.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially when the strike was impending. There's all these articles coming out about how important it is and how much freight moves through the rail and how many trucks you'd need to replace the rail. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's
unsung heroes.
Yeah,
it's kind of the heartbeat of the American economy.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you can't just switch that valve over to say all these trucks get on the road.
Yeah, Yeah. And thinking about next year, have you started seeing anything either on like the insurance side of things or just general rail price increases? How line hauls have been on the rail? Things getting more expensive, staying relatively flat.
Things definitely got more expensive earlier in the year,
but
I think things have kind of leveled out recently. Demand has stayed. Cars honestly have been fairly tight for a little while now. I don't know that that's really falling off. I know we've looked at it from different perspectives, and I think a lot of folks see like Q1 picking back up, which when you look at rail cars and anything like that, rail cars, tank farms, anything like that, you're looking at the long-term picture. So they normally don't really soften up on the short term, like, oh, it's dipped for a couple months. They look at it as, well, that lease really won't go into effect. If you lease now, it won't go into effect until Q1.
Yeah.
So they look at it from the Q1 perspective and just the next year, 2, 3, 10 as a whole.
Yeah, you probably see like trucking is a better short-term indicator on how busy stuff is. Rail sort of stays. It's more of a longer-term picture.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially from the leasing perspective. I mean, when you're looking at intermodal versus trucking, right now, intermodal is highly competitive because the entire freight industry is cooling off right now and everybody's desperate to try and fill capacity. So we've had a lot of conversations, it seems, this week, people talking about getting back to like what the actual demand is. Like when COVID started, trucking was difficult. Everyone all of a sudden starts evaluating rail, and now maybe some of that's coming off. Like who are the actual people that are going to want to be using rail as a logistics mode regularly versus who just opportunistically tried to jump into it and use it more?
Yeah, I think right now what you're seeing is like the cooling off between, like, as Joe mentioned, like the intermodal and the transload type opportunities. I mean, if you're looking at more of like a terminal operation, that's still something that's going to work for you.
Yep.
But in terms of, just being more cost effective on, truck versus trucking and transload, you're in that period where you really want to be going direct rail shipments if you can.
And how about you, Joe, on the sales side of things? How's stuff been the last couple, I guess, weeks or months with customers? What's the general mood? Is stuff been busier, less busy? People starting to plan for next year, or how's things been on the sales side and the demand side of things?
Well, I mean, as a salesman, you got to stay optimistic,
of course,
dealing with other salespeople.
That is the correct answer.
Yep, they are all very optimistic about 2023.
Yeah,
I think past couple months, everyone's kind of holding their breath, hoping things kind of turn around a little bit, but. I think from the freight perspective, so much pent-up demand kind of fizzled out into end of Q2, beginning of Q3 that now they're kind of just all looking towards Q1 2023. That being said, we have had a ton of warehousing, repackaging, transloading opportunities come in as people start stocking up their inventory. So the TLC team does a wonderful job of having a diverse portfolio of all those contacts. So as those kind of have taken over, the longer liquid bulk opportunities. I think a lot of shippers are going directly to some of the carriers for that type of stuff and revisiting their contracted rates, whereas the spot market's starting to cool off in that regard. But looking towards 2023, I think everyone's really hopeful that market's going to really start picking up again as the shipments really start coming in.
How about on the pricing side? Like Jamie, on the operations side, have you seen line hauls and pricing coming up? And Joe, have you seen you've had to meet more competitive situations? Have you seen better rates out there that, stuff's been a little bit tighter? Is it still kind of, Yeah,
everybody's bottom line is at top of mind right now as they end the year. So there's not as much wiggle room as far as what line hauls because everyone's so price conscious at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that line hauls, some things have been softening up a little bit on pricing because of the downward pressure that Joe, just mentioned.
Yep.
I mean, the difficulty with all of that has been fuel staying high still.
Yeah.
So that's really a killer on it. And that just, is affecting all of us, even in our daily lives, as we mentioned every time we've been on. But I mean, you are seeing a lot of demand for things. I mean, some of the terminal projects and things, you can't even get availability from warehouses or tank terminals, anything like that in the Gulf region, for instance. Still, it's you still have a lot of tightness out there on those type projects.
The longer term stuff, yeah. And even from the line haul standpoint, the basement can only go so low before a trucker just says, "No, I'd rather just sit and wait for something else." So there is only a certain threshold we can hit before someone just says, "No, I'm good."
Yeah. So again, back more to regular pricing versus opportunistic. Hey, I'm going to charge kind of whatever I want because it's more about supply versus
absolutely.
It was whoever could move the truck and whatever the price was. Now it's I got 4 options. Who can who can do the best?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. I mean, I think too often when we look at the spot market and things, people think, oh well, the trucker can just take less, and I think to a degree that's true, especially when things get overinflated, but I mean, in some ways you have to look at it similar to manufacturing or anything else, where you do still have a finite cost there somewhere, and you still have to, make money on that, and, for them to make their living. And that's, something where I think that's increased over time, as with most things, and as we've gone through inflation and things in the past, few months, years. And I don't think it's ever going to dip back down to where it was, during the pandemic, for instance, but it'll dip a little bit more.
And it seems like the driver pool hasn't been as big of a concern. It seems like people have been a little bit slow. Availability has been better. Obviously, I think from a macro standpoint, I'm sure there are still a large shortage of drivers, but it seems like availability has improved a bit.
So I would say availability has improved based off of just demand falling off here recently.
Yeah.
In terms of the driver pool itself, I think that's still, as you mentioned, with the macro level, I think that's still a huge issue going forward. Yeah,
especially when it comes to, the chemical distribution side of things. There's only so many hazmat drivers, only so many certified drivers in that pool that's already dwindling.
Right.
So, that's still definitely a concern. But right now, it's from a macro perspective, not a huge constraint yet.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, appreciate the update. Good talking to you guys. We'll have you on the December episode to give you your grand predictions for 2023, as we always do. But good talking to you guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
See you guys soon.
Thanks for having us on.